Is this the dagger?
Illegal substitution, too many men on the field, Saskatchewan.
Gizmo has a block and the sideline. He has not stepped out. He may go all the way. He needs one block and he'll do it easily.
Promise Mess I wouldn't do this.
McDavid stops up. What a move. Shoots. Scores!
Hey, everybody, and welcome. Yes, it is episode number 90 of The Outsiders, powered by the Macintosh Group at Remax River City. My name is Bryn Griffiths. He's Robin Brownlee. And joining us from TSN 1260 in Edmonton is the afternoon drive host, Jason Gregor. Jay, how you doing?
Excellent, fellas. You?
We're doing fine. Wow, what a crazy week it's been. Let's just jump right in on the Edmonton Oilers. I don't even know where to start here, but everyone wants to talk and use the expressions, it's a tire fire. It's a dumpster fire. But there's clearly something wrong, and I think it's more than just the players, more than just the coaching, and more than just the GMing. It just seems like there's an element we're missing. That's just my take on it, because I didn't like the way they played against Ottawa. Well, Ottawa showed me that they were having some fun and had a little bit of energy. But Jason, we'll start with you first. Is it as simple as one of those things, or do you think it's a big collective problem here?
Well, for 40 minutes, Ottawa did nothing. You know, they'd had 13 shots, and Edmonton was playing how they wanted. And then at Edmonton, to me's biggest challenge is that they can melt down, and they've done it. Even in the early part of the season when they were winning games, they would still gift goals too easily. And I think that's been a constant. If you look at constants, that's been a constant for them. Goals against has been an issue at 5-on-5 for a while. It got slightly better last season, but still not good enough to be a legit contending team. You got to be 5-on-5. You got to be around 1.9 goals against per game. And, you know, the Oilers this year at around 2.3, which is it's just way too high. So, goaltending's the obvious thing to look at. If you don't have consistent goaltending for any team, you're not going to win. So whether it's Smith, whether it's Koskinen, Stuart Skinner probably needed to make a save, at least one maybe in the third period that would help them. But right now it's a collective team effort. Your superstars aren't being super. Your team defense isn't good enough. I think their commitment to winning as a group isn't high enough. I don't see enough desperation in simple things. Like, I don't think they don't have enough guys committed to blocking shots at key times in the games. So they had one game where they had 3 block shots in the NHL. How's that possible? So it's not as it's easy to say fire the head coach. But it's never just fire the head coach, right? Like we saw Philadelphia, there's been no change when they went an interim coach. So that option doesn't make sense to me. If you're going to relieve Dave Tippett, then you're probably going to relieve Jim Playfair with him and maybe even Glenn Gulletson. And then who are you going to bring in that's unless the guy comes in and is bringing a goalie with him until they get the goaltending solved. That's number one. But I do think that, the coaching and the players, it's not the coach's fault that Mike Smith's injured, but it's his problem. And so you got to fix it. That's your job as a coach. And they haven't done enough to get consistency. Maybe it's we just got to play a much more defensive system until we get our starting goalie back. They haven't done that. So there's lots of people to blame, but I don't think there's just one. I think it's collective from management to coaches to players. I think Edmonton's good enough to be a playoff team. They're lucky they're in the Pacific, and Calgary's going backwards, and Anaheim's coming back down to earth, and LA's playing really well, but Edmonton's not out of it just yet, but they got to sort it out themselves. And looking for one trade or firing the coach, I don't think you can do that and it might happen, but I don't think there's one move that solves all the problems.
Well, Bryn, I agree with a lot of what Gregor just said. One of the problems that adds to the pile of problems is it's not just one thing. You can't circle this on the page and go, there it is right there. Goaltending is the most common theme probably, but there's problem with support in the second half of the forward group. This team was not good enough to lose that many defensemen for the time they lost those defensemen. firing Dave Tippett is not the answer either. But it's funny how things gain momentum and people start talking. And I'll tell you what, I wasn't aware of it years ago. And it's been a long time when I was on the beat because there wasn't so much social media noise. But now being at arm's length and listening to fans on Twitter and Oilers Nation and so on and so forth, there's so much noise out there. And part of the noise that I think does get inside the room, because it's a real possibility, is Evander Kane, yes or no? I mean,
Robin, did you go to sleep?
Maybe he lost power at his house.
You know, that wouldn't shock me. It never dawned on me that there might be a freaking issue today with power lines.
Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing technical difficulties. Please stand by.
Are you with us? What happened there?
I'm with you. I think they're trying to silence me somehow.
Do you have a little power failure? I know we're getting a bit of an ice storm in the Edmonton area today, so hey, we got you back. It's via your phone though now. But anyway, you were just kind of you were talking about the Oilers and where you thought they were at. You want to pick up on that?
Well, absolutely. And I don't know exactly where we lost me, but I was on about Evander Kane. I mean, I think that's a hot topic, and I've got my thoughts on whether it's a good or bad idea, and I think you know where I'm coming from. But I think all the little problems and the inconsistency and the frustration of this latest stretch of a dozen games leads us to Evander Kane. Like, why any team having any success and feeling good about itself would even consider Evander Kane, I don't know, which tells me the Oilers can't be feeling that good about themselves. But man, I think they're looking in the wrong place if they consider this an answer. That's just my take.
Well, Jason, what's your thoughts on that? Because I thought it was a really rough week from a public relations standpoint for the Oilers. I didn't like the Kenny Holland press conference. It just seemed like there was no cohesion to it. And then Connor McDavid a couple of days later, just I don't really know how to describe it. It seemed like nobody was prepped going into that to talk about the Evander Kane situation. And the problem with Evander Kane is that it's like an onion. There's a lot of layers to it. But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, well, for me, my big concern about Kane is I've never seen, and who knows, maybe behind the scenes he's done it. My sources tell me there hasn't been any, he to me looks like a troubled person. He's got, he obviously has a gambling addiction. Maybe he's going to get help for that, but he's made some bad decisions in his life, I think, is to put it politely. There's also some stuff where, like, for him to get sole custody of his child reflects that, and that's almost unheard of for a guy to get that. So, the comments, him and his estranged wife, he was the one who had first, charged her with abuse and got a restraining order. Then she came out with the abuse and the alleged gambling. They looked into it. They found nothing. He gets custody of his kid, but he has a track record of being, making some bad decisions. So, like, I look at the NHL has their substance abuse program, but it's also behavioral. And, I think he could benefit from talking to someone. I'm not a therapist, but I've talked, I know lots of people. I went and talked to one many years ago. I just needed someone to talk to, and it makes a big difference. And if any team was looking at signing him, part of the equation for me would be like, okay, Evander, let's find out why you've been going down this path with these wrong decisions. And, why do you think it's okay to falsify a vaccine card? Why do you think it's okay to not follow with a simple thing like a dress code? So we got to get to the root of that, because on the ice, he's a good player. No one debates that. Yeah. It's Evander Kane, the person. And I think it's a debate where the pro sports teams, should they care about their employees enough to say, hey, here's somebody that I think can benefit. So to me, I said, the only way I would have condoned signing Evander Kane is saying, hey, we'll sign you, but there's got to be some action on your part that says you're looking to get help. So, what part of the contract comes with, you're going to see a therapist or whatever. I don't know if it's that cut and dry, but that's something where, to me, I think should have been part of the conversation. Now, they haven't signed him yet, so maybe that is going to be part of it. And I get that that's a very personal thing, but lots of players, Zach Caston's a prime example. Zach Kassian went and got help. There's no one hears any issues with Zach Kassian since, right? Like, people complain about his play on the ice. That's fine. That's what you do about players. But, Zach Kassian's, I think, is in a much better place as a human being. And I think that should be something that teams look for when it comes to Evander Kane.
Well, I completely agree. I mean, look no further. I mean, Kassian's a good example, but, let's go back to Craig McTavish. I mean, that was a serious change of direction in his life. I mean, this was somebody died and a year in jail, and we know what happened there. That was a terrible decision on his part. He served his time in jail, and he moved on from that. Kane is different. There's no criminal act to that extent that we're aware of, but it just seems to be one issue after another in different areas. It's like if there's trouble anywhere to this point in his life, he's been the guy to find it. And he's 30 years old now, and he's not a kid who is trying to feel his way into the National Hockey League.
Well, I've always hated the comparable when Mac T's name keeps coming up because he had no track record before it, made one horrible, horrible error, and then did everything he possibly could to make up for it after and was exemplary in how he handled it. So I don't know why that one keeps coming up every time somebody wants to do a comparable when they talk about, you're right. You know what? Jason, you're absolutely right. The Zach Kassian one's probably as good a comparable as you can find. And he's been a really good citizen from what we've been told. We don't see him in any problems or he's got a good support group. But let's also talk about the fact that coming into Edmonton, you're not exactly going to be able to hide. So I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. How do you view it, Jason?
Well,
is that going to make it worse?
You can't go anywhere. What are we talking about? It's in COVID. I haven't been out in months. So
yes,
I don't know. If you want to find trouble, you'll find trouble at the end of the day. I don't care. Hey, man, I grew up in small town New Sarepta. You want to find trouble, you can still find it in New Sarepta. There might only be one bar, but you'll find it. So to me, it comes down to the person themselves has to be willing to want to make a change. And I haven't seen a lot of actions from Kane that suggest that. Now, people can change. Some people need to be hit over the head 10, 15 times before they finally decide, hey, I need to make some changes in my life, right? And you need a really good support system. And, I don't know if he has that or if he's willing to get it or not. I think Dan Milstein, his agent, I talked to 2 other NHL agents, and they said they would have been pushing him strongly to enter the substance abuse and behavioral program of the NHL, to the point that maybe he would have fired them as an agent, because your job as an agent, they say, is to look out for the person first. And we got to remember, he's a person who's made some bad decisions, but he's also a father now. So he's got someone that he's responsible for. And, hey, like I said, maybe he has. My sources tell me that there hasn't been anything along that lines as of yet. We'll see that maybe he's suspended from the National Hockey League, so that will give him time to go do it if need be. But the old adage is you can blame an organization and they say, hey, they're not going to take him. But the truth is, and it's business, Evander Kane on the ice would really help their team. There's no debating that. Oh, yeah. So if the organization can help him as a person, then maybe it's a win-win.
And Bryn, just let me say, I bring up Mac T because it's not a good comparison. But it keeps coming up all the time, Robin. Well, and I don't think it should. It needs to come up, Bryn, because what I get tired of hearing is this. Craig McTavish was a second chance. That was a case where it's a second chance. Evander Kane is not a second chance. You read his rap sheet, and again, while there's nothing as serious as Mac T on it, people saying this is a second chance, it's bullshit, Bryn. They're just kidding themselves. Just come out and say, look, we think he can help us on the ice, and we're so damn eager to win, we're willing to look the other way or discount all the things he's done or downplay it. Do that. At least it's based in honesty. Stop calling it a second chance. It's not a second chance. It's a 7th, 8th, or 9th chance.
Okay. Did we wrap that one up enough for now? Because I'm guessing it's probably going to be lasting another week or two. So let's talk about the team to the south, the Calgary Flames, where the bloom is clearly off of the Sutter Rose. They rode a lot of their third and fourth line guys for quite a bit, and they were getting some production from the guys that they should get production from. But it's tough to play, Jason. It's tough to play Sutter hockey. 82 games of the year, they just look like they've run out of gas.
Well, they went on that East Coast swing into Death Valley. You go into Tampa and Florida and Carolina, and you're getting crushed. And, they're not going to be the only team that does that. Calgary, I think, is a team that, like Edmonton's, obviously going through a funk right now. I think they have just as good a chance as Edmonton of getting out of it, because you don't have to play great to make the playoffs in the Pacific Division, right? LA was in a funk. Now LA's red hot. Calgary and Edmonton are deep in the ditch right now, and they can turn it around. Calgary, they need more from Sean Monahan. They need more from not so much their bottom end guys. They need more so from their top six, excluding Gaudreau. Gaudreau's produced pretty well so far this season for them. I don't know if I say you get fatigued. Like the LA Kings played Daryl Sutter hockey for many years, and they won 2 Stanley Cups. So, asking guys to play discipline and work hard shouldn't that should be the minimum requirement of hard work in the NHL. I just think Calgary's in a little bit of a funk. Unless you're a great team, you're likely going to go through a funk stage at the course of the season. Tampa and Florida and maybe Colorado, but that was because they had their best players all injured. The really good teams don't go away. Edmonton and Calgary are showing that they're not great teams. They're just middle of the road teams. And sometimes you get some bad breaks, and that's going to lead to the Oilers have 2 wins in 14, and Calgary's got 3 and 11. So I kind of see Calgary. They're a different style of team and how they play. But when they were playing how they wanted, they were winning. And I think they've gotten away from that, and now they're struggling. But I see Calgary and Edmonton, and throw the Sharks even in. They're getting everything from a lot of guys right now. I'm not sure how talented they are, but they work really hard. And if they're getting decent goaltending for the first time in 4 years, so they're competitive. I think Anaheim will be there. Outside of Vegas, I think you can flip a coin on who's going to finish second and third in the Pacific.
Robin?
Yeah, Jason, I was a little bit surprised, and maybe, I don't know how much you've looked at them. I was a little bit surprised by Anaheim, how good they've been. I mean, there's that, it's a few years removed now, but the Dallas Aikens connection there. Has Anaheim surprised you with how good they've been to this point?
Not really, but I misjudged them because I overlooked the fact that they were without Manson and Lindholm for much of last season. So you take out 2 of your top 4 defensemen. I don't care what team you are. It's rare that you're going to be able to overcome that. And that's what Anaheim had last season. John Gibson had a little bit of a down year by his standards. He's back. He's a great goaltender. They got good depth on defense. I think Anaheim was overachieving early, and now they're coming back to the pack, where I think they're going to be in the hunt in the Pacific, because they're lucky. The Pacific's not the Atlantic. It's not the Metro. It's not even the Central. So you have an opportunity where, if you can be a 92, 93, 94 point team, I think you're going to get in. And that's where the Ducks are at. I think the Ducks are in it. They've got some skilled young guys. And, Dallas Aikens, Dallas Aikens was a young coach, and he made some mistakes as a young coach. And Dallas has talked about that. He's learned from it. He came in, they improved their special teams immensely. Their special teams was terrible last year. And Dallas, to his credit, brought in new coaches and said, I'm not doing anything. You guys do it, because I don't want to be involved, because obviously, and that takes, I think, a lot when you're the head coach to just let other people coach. That's some part about maturing and learning, is to say, hey, I don't need to have it be involved in everything. I hire good people. I trust them. And it's working so far in Anaheim. So I didn't pick them to be a playoff team, but I probably misjudged them by overlooking the injuries on defense. And, their power play, and I wrote at the start of the year, their power play would be better, because it was the worst ever in the NHL, and they've been better.
I guess if there's a positive, all the cancellations. Sorry, I made the mistake. The postponements. There's a big difference between canceling and postponing. But all the postponements we've had up here in Canada in particular, I've had a chance to watch Florida and Tampa play more in the last 3 weeks than I think I've watched in the last 3 years. And the thing that's pretty obvious to me is both of those 2 clubs, one of those 2 teams isn't going to make it out of there. But, man, they've been fun to watch. Who wants to jump in on that one first? Florida and Tampa, you know what you're getting. We've seen it plenty in the last couple of years, but Florida really look like they're on fire. They're coming into Edmonton this week. That's got disaster written all over it for the Edmonton Oilers, but we don't know which Oiler team's going to show up. But Jason, your thoughts on what you've seen from Florida and the Panthers and the way they're playing starts with the goal out.
Hey, Florida's a really good team, man. Really good team. And they actually have quite a bit of cap space right now. They're the one team that, like, they could go out and acquire John Klingberg. Like, they got good defense, but you add John Klingberg from Dallas into Florida. Oh my goodness. Like, and you can't even overlook Boston, who once they split up their top line and put Pasternak with Hall, they're on fire. Yep. They got Tuukka Rask coming back. That division's going to be tough, man. Toronto's in there, Florida, Tampa. But yeah, Florida just walked all over Dallas and Columbus for fun this past weekend. And the Oilers, who knows, maybe the fear factor of getting embarrassed might be what wakes them up, because the way Edmonton's playing, Florida's going to crush them. Florida's very deep. Huberdeau and Barkov are now on separate lines. Jonathan Huberdeau might be the best left winger in the NHL. He is really good. And Barkov's an elite two-way centerman. Uyghur's probably a player a lot of people don't pay attention to. Him and Ekblad give you legit top guys on the blue line. They're a fun team to watch. A really fun team to watch. And what I like about them is they got a mix of high skill, and then they've got some guys, Sam Bennett can play like a dick on the ice. Yeah. And I mean that in a good way. Yes. They're big and physical and skilled. And honestly, I'm going to be I'm very curious to see what they do at the deadline, because I think Florida looks and says, hey, we're entering our window now and we take a shot. And if you can get John Klingberg out of Dallas, and they potentially could re-sign him even if they found a way to trade Hornqvist. So it'll be fun to watch.
Robin?
Well, it's interesting. It's you watch the Florida Panthers long enough. I mean, I remember going down there way before the Rats were hitting the ice, and you're waiting for, Roberto Luongo down there, and you keep thinking, oh, this club's got a piece here, a piece there. Not often they've managed to put it together. There's been times, but you look at this club now, a guy like Huberdeau comes in with some fanfare, then seems to kind of disappear for a little while, right back on top of his game. Now Barkov's an unbelievable player. There's more balance there. Monahan goes and plays. Monahan's every bit as good as people hope he could be when he came into the league. And changing places doesn't always bring that out in you. So they're real good. The only problem for the Panthers is, there's another pretty good team in the state. The Bolts are just perennially good, and they've got, the one player for me, and there's been a lot of guys, even if you go back to the days of LeCavalier and Martin St. Louis, that's a long time ago now, but this Braden Point, to me, he's a hell of they got a bunch of guys that you look at and go, that's a hell of a player right there, and they play well together. I mean, they're still a powerhouse.
That Florida situation reminds me of Alberta in the 80s, where you had the Flames and the Oilers, and I think that both teams fed off of each other and made themselves better because the competition level was higher. But it's been fun to watch. Okay, because we got a lot to get to here, and we lost some time because of the power failure, but let's talk about the Edmonton Elks, talk a little football. Obviously, the football side is coming together nicely, but now we're hearing that a presidential announcement is coming down very, very soon. Jason, do you like the direction that they're going here? See, I have no trouble with the Chris Jones thing because he wins. So if he can keep himself on the football side and keep building that, okay, sure. But as for putting fans in the seats, the presidential announcement, that's going to be a big one.
Well, it's probably a tougher job, to be honest, because you can go scout and you can get players. And if you're confident in that, that's what you can control. The president of the Elks, there's a lot, the Elks to me in a lot of ways are stuck in the 90s and the 2000s in a lot of their decision-making stuff. And I'll be curious, Paul Graham, would come from TSN potentially, or, Sean Fleming has a lot of credibility as a player and in the business community in Edmonton. The other guy, Victor, do I say his name right? Victor, is it Sue?
It's Victor Cui.
Cui. Okay. Victor Cui. I don't know as much about him, to be honest, Bryn, but whoever takes over the job has has a real big challenge, because where the CFL has, they've relied on their same audience for a long time. That's a dedicated audience. So you have to find a way to keep them engaged, but then bring in things. Like, I have some ideas that I've talked about for years that I would have done with the CFL. They haven't done. Like, you go to Green Bay, and I like to compare Green Bay because it's a small market NFL team. When you go to Green Bay on game day, you have every radio station in town is outside the building. The Elks don't do that because their host broadcasts like, oh, we're the rights holder. Who cares if you're the rights holder? That you're the rights holder of the game. And if you're the rights holder, you should be a partner who should say, okay, having all of the other radio stations in town here actually will help us, because when the game's on, then they can only listen to one. Right.
Yeah.
And like, it's a simple thing where, I know Marty Forbes at the Bear for a long time. Bear listeners are, they might not be football fans, diehards, but they're like, I like to have a party. I like to have fun. Oh, let's have a section. Oh, no, we couldn't do that. God forbid. So, the Elks have so many issues off of the field that they need to sort out and find out who their real partners are. And they're going to have to change a lot, because they were, when I came in, 20 years ago, the Elks were without question the cream of the crop in the CFL.
Yeah.
Right now, they might be number 9. Well, maybe 8 behind Toronto, and have Toronto 9th because they don't draw any fans. But Ottawa is in a better situation because of their ownership group than they are right now. Saskatchewan, you look at even BC and Calgary, they're more appealing right now than Edmonton. Edmonton has a long way to go to repair what they've done as an organization, and whoever takes over that job, like, that's a massive challenge, and they have to have somebody who understands the community. And I think the board should be scrutinized much. They have made some horrific decisions in Edmonton for many years.
Yeah.
And have come away, oh well, right? Like, oh well's not good enough. And I'm at the point where to ask the question, would private ownership be better for the club moving forward?
Wow. Hey, by the way, because Victor Quee's name has come up, he's got a MMA background, so obviously he knows the demographic he wants to go after in terms of mixed martial arts. Well, the one thing we've been talking about here for the longest time is that the Elks have got to do a much better job of attracting a much younger and a little more diverse audience. So he might be a really great fit. We know what Sean Fleming's all about, and Sean would get a thumbs up from me as well. And Paul Graham, who's like the number 2 guy at TSN, has got a really good idea of what people are watching and what they're interested in. All 3 of them have got great community connections in Edmonton, so they're not going to go wrong with any of the 3 guys that they select. So that'll be fun. But Robin, you and I have talked a little bit about how important it is, and Jason just touched on it. They've got to do a much better job of getting out to all these radio stations, because if you're only listening to 2 or 3 that are talking about your game coming up tonight, and the other 13 aren't even mentioning you got a problem, Robin.
Well, yeah, and Gregor touched on it, and we've talked about it. It doesn't matter how things were when we were 17 and used to go to the game. You need to read the room now. You need to understand your demographic now and your audience now, and sell to them, appeal to them. I'm making a bit of a joke here, because the way it was brought up about, well, our audience is a bunch of old white guys. Well, you don't want to insult the old white guys. You want to keep them if you can, but you want to add to them with the young people of every color, the diversity that we're talking about. If you don't grow, sooner or later you die. And they've got to bring in people, not eliminate people. So if that means doing something that would have seemed kind of funky 20 years ago, and this kind of ad campaign or that kind of ad campaign, you've got to go for it, because what sells now, you can't just drag stuff out of the closet from 20 years ago and say, well, this worked then, let's keep doing it. Figure out what needs to be done. Who are you trying to attract, and go after it, because there's a whole group of people out there that if they get to the game and watch the game, they're going to enjoy the game. Well,
there were 2 matchups at Commonwealth Stadium this year, 45,000 for both games to watch soccer in Edmonton in November in brutally cold weather, and the diversity and the youthfulness and the excitement and the energy in the crowd. And you're wondering, how can they find a way, the football team, to kind of take some of that? I know that it helps when you've got a player who's pretty sensational playing for the Canadian men's national soccer team, the homegrown kid. But Jason, how do the Eskimos view what happened there with those two games? How do they find a way to tap into some of that? How do you think that they can find a way to bring some of that in for their games? Or do you think there's even a comparable there at all?
I don't really see it comparable. You're talking a national pride in something that you have a lot of people that are, lots of immigrants have come to Canada and they're huge soccer fans, right? Huge soccer fans. And we had many years ago, the women's had 47,000 fans here. So it's not a surprise. That's happened for a long time. But it's a completely different sport. It's a one-off, Look at the Eddies. How do they draw all the time in Edmonton, right? So I think it's an unfair comparison to suggest that a national team game, which happens, maybe when will that happen again? I have no idea, right? So they wanted to have a real good showing. I don't think that's a fair comparison to what the CFL team is going to do moving forward.
But that's the kind of crowd you want to go for.
Well, it's the type of crowd you want, but at the same time, that crowd's they're passionate about soccer. Right, because they play it. You've got to go out to the football communities and get football people who want to come. But you've got to make your games more of an event, and not, but just make it more fan friendly. You've got to have cheaper tickets. You got to get people in the building. Number one, that's the first thing, right? And getting them in the building because you have a country band at halftime or an R&B band at halftime. Maybe that brings in a few people, but I don't really think at the end of the day it brings in much. And the other thing is winning. Obviously, if you win, people come to winners. That's just a fact, right? Many years ago, would the Canadian men's team have drawn any fans? Probably not, because they weren't very competitive. Now they're competitive. So winning obviously helps. And that's where, Chris Jones and the president have to tie in, where if he can make the team more competitive, well, that will help. And that's going to be a big challenge. Who's going to be the quarterback? So, we can go to that. But whoever is the team president, let's make it clear. There's not one person that's going to solve everything. They got to have a much better team across the board. And there's some people in that Elks organization that I don't understand are still there. Why are they there? One person's going to come in, and if he doesn't hire the proper people underneath him, it's irrelevant. It's going to be the same old, same old. So to me, there's significant change on the business side that will involve not just a president. There's got to be many other changes that go to lots of different levels.
Also, we've talked plenty about Dwayne Mandrusiak's situation and how he was dealt with. They got to fix those little things to move forward, do they not?
Oh, 100%. Hey, you know what? You can always make up for a mistake, right? Yeah. The new guy has nothing to do with what happened in the past, but the board did, right? Tough decisions. Somebody could have stood up and said, "Hey, wait a sec, guys. This isn't going to look good. We're a publicly owned team." Right. Hey, you know what? There's ways to have allowed Dwayne to stay around if you wanted 50 years, if it mattered that much to 50 years, or you know what, if he would have left at 49 years, but in a much better fashion. Now I get that it was COVID and you were gone from everything. Well, and lots of people were getting laid off, right? So, you could have looked at it that way. And I understand that side of it. You can't ignore that. That's a fact. But there are ways to, I would at least look like you're trying to mend that fence and do it properly.
Bryn, I got to ask Gregor this, because I think he's far more up on it than I am. The board has come up a few times, and it's come up a few times in conversations I had with different people. Eddie Steele, you can go through a few names. If there's issues there, and you want to hold them accountable, is there a process in place that decides, hey, we need to talk about this or we need to talk about that? Or is it a simple matter of you're in or you're out? How does it work, Gregor?
Well, you serve your term, right? Ian Murray's in the last year of his term, right? And he can't come back. That's just how the guidelines are. So, okay. They'll bring in new ones. I think there's probably a good chance that Tom Richard might be the new chair of the board. I think it's probably trending in that direction, and that's fine. But you talk about, Bryn, having diversity in different age group. How many people on the board now? You don't have to have everybody. I think you can be smart and understand what 30-year-olds want when you're 50. You don't have to be 30 to understand what 30-year-olds are. But having someone on the board who's maybe closer to that generation could help. They have a few, but I don't, but like the board. How much football experience do they have? True football experience. Right now you got Tom Richards, but for years you didn't have much. So, and when the board kept out of things, there wasn't an issue. But the last few years, the board has been more involved than it ever has been before. And I think that's a problem. So, You know what? Maybe if they go back to the days where the board wasn't as involved, maybe that helps, because you're getting people who don't really understand football to the level that they were making decisions on. Right. And there was a lot of power struggles of siding with one side or the other. And that to me shouldn't happen. As the board says, hey, wait a sec, we're a unified team here. We can have discussions and we can have disagreements, but we can't be picking sides. And so I think there's, like anything, when things are going wrong, there's never just one, get a new head coach, get a new president, that'll solve everything. I think it starts back about the Oilers problems. When you have multiple issues, then you need a lot of people who are willing to want to change them and improve it. And I don't think there'll be an easy snap your fingers. The new president's going to come in with 10 new ideas and suddenly the crowds are going to be back and everything's going to be great. Like this is going to be a long process, and then people are willing to be open to change and say, hey, what we've done was wrong. We have to look at improving it moving forward.
Well, looking forward to the announcement. If it's this week, sounds like it could be, or next week, but get it done and start moving in a positive direction. Okay, we don't have a ton of time with you. We lost some of it because of the power outage, and I know you got to get down to Oiler land here this morning. We got to talk a little bit about you. And how many years now for you?
Well, it's coming up on, I guess it'll be 21 officially this month, actually.
Do you find it amazing that the time has gone by the way it has? Because it doesn't seem that long ago when I walked into Marty Forbes' office and said, we need an afternoon show on this radio station and we need an evening show. And I mentioned two names. Yours is one. The other was Bob Stauffer. And I had to do the old sales job. And we brought you guys in and you just knocked it out of the ballpark. It was a grand slam, both cases right from day one. But you've been doing other stuff before then. Let's go back to John Short, who we both idolized and listened to a long time ago. That's kind of where you got rolling, right?
Well, you know what? I'm a big believer in you need to be in the right situation. Everybody needs a little bit of luck, and you need somebody who gives you an opportunity. And for me, that was John Short, right? Like I grew up, I listened to John, and I was in NAIT. I was taking radio and television, and I was in my third semester. And John needed an on-site engineer, and I like to bug John. We're good friends. That like John could barely turn on a computer, so he wasn't going to be the tech guy, right? And honestly, like that's the greatest break I ever got, because I got to be his on-site engineer back at Northlands Park, and started in January while I was in school of 2001. And Rob Kerr was his regular guy, and he wanted to start going to games, so they needed someone. And I was only supposed to work for the Oiler home games. Pretty simple. I was in school. It was going to be from January till the end of the season. But then Rob actually got really sick for a month. So I had to work every night, which was fine. School was good for me, but I got to do John's show every night. And that allowed him to see what I was about and created an opportunity. I was supposed to do my practicum at Ched. And then, he was like, well, why don't you do it with me? And I was like, well, I didn't even think that was an option. So then I switched and I went to him and I did that. And I started covering the Eskimos or Elks, I guess. It was the S then, Elks now. And then we did play-by-play on anysportanytime.com, doing junior football and junior A hockey and ACAC sports. And, that was a lot of fun. I love doing play-by-play. Did some national championships with the Huskies and stuff. And then it just like we were working at the time with John. We started out at Oldies 1260, and then we went to the Christian station for a while, which was an eye-opening one for sure for sports. And we had a sports show, and then we convinced them to get an evening show, which was great. And so basically I was lucky. I didn't have to go to a small market. I was kind of on a small market station, the Christian station in a major market in Edmonton, where I got to cover the pro teams. And so a little bit of luck for sure that you didn't have to leave. I think I've got some talent. I think my biggest strength is my work ethic. I'm not afraid to put in hours. And then, the other break really for me was outside of doing radio is, I kind of started being a little bit of a business person and didn't really know that was even an option going in. And so I owned my own show, which was kind of an eye-opening experience. And then Clark Murray, another person that I met who asked me to come and write for Oilers Nation at the time, back in 2007. And at that point, I'd owned my show. And so I was a little bit of an entrepreneur. I said, well, can I buy into the company with him? And him and Jay Doughton said, sure. And so that that turned out to be another really good thing. I was writing, and I guess I forgot Lee Nohost from Sports Scene, which was a small little, that allowed me to get my start in writing way back when too. So, there's lots of people that give you opportunity, and then it's up to you to take advantage of that opportunity. And, I had people like yourself and Carl Stark and Marty Forbes, because I was working with John in a group, and I had my show at 11 p.m. till 1. And frankly, I just wasn't making any money. At the end of the day, I was like, it's got to be sink or swim. So I just said, can I start my own show? And I talked to John, and he was fine with it. And I went into Marty and Carl's office, and I said, hey guys, I don't really have a company, but I'll figure it out. And I was doing some sales, and I just started there. And it's been a great partnership from Standard, and now it's with Bell and TSN. And it's kind of amazing that I've been in the drive show since 2008. So it's in the afternoon, and it's been a lot of fun, and I'm learning a lot of different things. And, it's allowed me to meet a lot of different people in Edmonton. And I really think my childhood I lived in New Sarepta for a bit. I went grade 1 to 2 in New Sarepta. We moved to Leduc. My mom was a vice principal, so she wanted to try that for a bit. We lived in Leduc. I went to school there for 1 year, then I bused to Beaumont for French immersion. So I was kind of used to moving around and meeting a lot of different people, and I really think that actually helped me in my business sense, where I'm not afraid to just call up people and have to go into new situations. I really think my childhood helped that. And
with the way things are going digitally, it's those who find a way to reinvent themselves a little bit in this business, and you've done it, and you continue to do it. It just means that it lengthens your career, but it's all about challenges and having some fun while doing it. Don't you find that?
Oh yeah. Like it's, partnering up with Frank Saravalli on the Daily Face-Off on the DFO Rundown podcast has opened up other doors for me as well. It's a lot of fun. Like, I'm a big sports fan, not just covering one team. Like I don't know if I would ever really be like, there are certain jobs. I don't think I would be great as a beat reporter, because I like talking about more than just one team, right? Or writing about it. I think it's really hard to be a beat reporter and only focus on one thing. For me personally, I respect those who do it, because I think it's a really tough job. And, for me in radio, I was lucky. I would talk football, but then I would talk hockey. And I did lacrosse play-by-play for the Rush for 10 years in Edmonton. And that was an absolute treat. I never knew anything about lacrosse. I just learned it. And, I did junior football and AJHL. And, so that's allowed me to do a lot of different things. My curiosity, I'm not good at just doing one thing. So, doing DFO, now I do more league-wide stuff, which forces me to kind of change my focus a little bit. And I've liked it. So yeah, I'm one who likes to try different things. You don't always succeed at them, but it's nice to try new different ones.
Hey, Brent, I got to jump in here. I find myself smiling. Gregor mentioned, one of the things he mentioned was, well, I kind of got lucky. I find Gregor gets lucky a lot because
there's a reason. Yeah.
He works. He hustles. The first time I remember Gregor, in fact, he was hustling. It was outside at Commonwealth Stadium, and he had an armful of his gear with him. He was in game night clothing, and he'd obviously forgotten something or whatever. He went sprinting through the parking lot at Commonwealth Stadium with all his gear on. And I thought, man, if there's a media track meet, that guy's going to win. That has nothing to do with what's happened here, but I've always remembered that. I also remember with the guys at Oilers Nation, when they brought me on after the Sun let me go, they said, we want to get legit. Will you join us? I joined them. A little while later, they said to me, what would you think about bringing Gregor in? What do you think about him? And I immediately thought, can he write? I've met a lot of radio guys. Hey, and I'm the flip side. I can write. Can I radio? Some people would say yes. Some people would say no.
No, you're doing okay.
But I've never read a guy who's cut his teeth in radio that writes better than Gregor. And I'm not trying to embarrass him here. And there's no punchline coming. So you work at it. You get a little bit of luck, and you have some ability. I think you get what we have here, and that's a career, as you said, that's going on 21, 22 years now, Jason. And you've been part of Nation Network as a writer. You're involved in the business side. You got the DFO stuff going. The show's been terrific for a long time. I was lucky enough to be a part of that for, I want to say, 8 years or 9 years. Funny what happens. Funny how some people get lucky a lot, isn't it, huh?
You like the writing thing? Because you're great at it.
Yeah, you know what? I do like writing for sure. I still think, like, for me, I'm a better writer when it comes to like emotional topics, right? Like I read Robin and other guys, like their opening lines and stuff when it comes to an article. And I'm just like, yeah, I don't have that. Now, where I think I'm a really good writer is when it comes to emotional pieces. Like when I get to really dig into a human, that's where I find I'm better as a writer. I was lucky enough. I was raised by my late father and my mom to, kind of be in touch with your emotions. So I'm a pretty emotional guy that way. Can be good or bad. Sometimes I can go off the deep end a little bit and I can be a little short tempered, I guess my wife would say.
That's
but,
okay though.
I really like, like those, like when I look back on all the articles I've written over the years, like I love digging up stats. I think I'm really good. Like, I mean, I like to do my game day notes at Oilers. I like to find up stats that maybe people aren't talking about, but I couldn't be a guy like the deadline guys. Like it's another skill set where I'm like, God, I would suck at that one. So, I think that's a tough one where I like pieces I've written, like long pieces on, Jason Strudwick and his wife Shona about their whole building their family. And, I really dug into that one. And, Kyle Brodziak's retirement one where I interviewed a lot of people over his careers and different stories like that. Like those are the ones I really like doing. And I'd like to do more of it. You can't really do that in COVID. It's hard to get a personal touch, but those are the ones that I like the most, to be honest. And I did that a little bit on radio with the Elks when I first started on my Gridiron show, where I would just bring the players on and we didn't even talk football. We just talked about their life. And I find that that's a way that fans get more of a connection to players, is when they know something about them. And I think a lot of sports teams kind of forget that. And fans, if they know that, certain player has, like Albert Reese is the story I always remember. He was a huge defensive lineman, like 290 ripped, 6'5", one of the biggest people I've ever met. And he comes on and he tells us a story about his family and how they ran a funeral home. That was their family gig. Like, when he's 16, 17, he's driving a hearse around and he's picking up dead bodies. And, the one time he pulls one out and rigor mortis hadn't really set in, all of a sudden the body starts moving and Albert Reese is this big guy and he's like, I'm screaming. And it was just like those stories that are pretty funny that I'll never forget. And I do really like the human side, and I'd like to dig into more of that moving forward.
Hey, my career started back in 83, 84, and my dad was around, and I lost him to a heart attack in 88, and my career was just getting started. There's not a day that goes by where I don't think of my dad, wishing he was around to watch how my career has advanced. You lost your dad at a pretty young age. You have a piece that you run every year in tribute to your dad.
Fabulous.
It's a great piece, and it rings so true with me every time I read it. But what do you think your dad would think of your career now? Have you ever thought of that?
Oh yeah.
Or every day?
Geez, I get choked up just thinking about old Pops.
Yeah,
I was in school. My dad passed away in September of 2000, just had a sudden heart attack out of nowhere, the bastard. But and I say that with love. He was a great man. So he never, and my dad was the great dad, and his kids, my older brother and my younger sister, he went to all their sporting events, and he was not the overpower. He just sat back, and in Beaumont, anybody who played hockey in Beaumont in the Brack, in that arena, there's a little perch up in the top, kind of, you think of the old Muppets, really. And so my dad would just sit up there and watch the game, and he was never, he was not the father in the car ride home that was like, you're doing this. He was like, hey, did you have fun? And, the odd time I'd ask him his opinion on the game, and then he knew everything, and then he would share it. But other than that, he never said anything other than just, enjoyment. He was like, God, I love coming to your guys' games, and it was fun. So he would have been, I think it would be, he would have loved being able to listen to the radio, to have his son on the radio. Just because, and there's times for sure, like, true story, so I'm on the air with John Short and I do my first show. And then there was one night where, like, the first week, like, John's not having me on the radio, nor should he. Like, I didn't have much experience, and two guests didn't show up. And so John just says, hey, turn your mic on. And he started asking me some questions. And I was a sports nerd from a long time ago, so I knew what I was talking about. At least I thought I did. And John brought me on, and for I was like an interview guest back and forth. And after the show, John's like, wow, that was really good. We'll do that every show now. And I was just like, wow. And I remember driving home, across the Capilano Bridge, which is now Wayne Gretzky Drive. And I literally had to pull over on 106th Ave because I was crying so hard because I was just like, man, Dad would have really liked that. And even this many years, 20 years later, it still kind of chokes me up because if there is one thing, and I know that he would just say all the polite stuff and he'd be like, hey, son, you're doing awesome. But the fact that you never get to hear that sucks. And so, my mom does it and my brother and my family, which is great, but there's just something different that's missing there. And so it's still one where there's years I've written that article and, like I had my friends, I'd sent it to my friends privately for many years. And then Clark was the one who said, hey, you should post that on Oilers Nation. I was like, man, I don't know about that. Like people don't want to read about, me talking about my dad. And it's that. And every year I was like, I don't think I should write that again. But I always get a few emails from some people about, my mom says, it's not about you. You got to write that for other people because somebody might've just lost their father or, they're struggling. And the best emails I've gotten from that are from people who are like, you know what, man? Like this one guy said he read it in a hotel room. Him and his wife were contemplating getting a divorce. And he was like, what are we doing? And you talked about how important it is for your kids. And you know what? He emailed me 5 years later and said, me and my wife are still happy. And then, man, that email changed my life. And you're just like, holy cow. So that's like probably one of the nicest things someone can say. So I always try to go out of my way when I see an article that someone writes that I really like. I always just send them a note, say, hey, that was really good. Or that hit me this way. Because when someone does that to me, it makes me feel like, okay, I should keep writing it.
Brent, I'll second that. Jason, and because I sent you a note or two, that never gets old. That passion and that feeling that I can feel it grab you when you talk about situations involving your dad. You know what? It's never silly. You know this. It's never silly. It's never embarrassing. I think most people out there can never get enough of what you're talking about when you write those stories.
Yeah, inspiration and trying to pump other people up. I know every time I read it, I think of my dad, and I wish I had him alongside me through all of this. But in a lot of ways, I remember in 1990, the Oilers were playing at the Chicago Stadium, and my dad was a Chicago Blackhawk fan.
Oh, nice.
And so I'm sitting at the stadium on my own. It's all quiet, and it wasn't quiet very often at the old stadium. And I could have felt he was sitting right next to me.
Yeah.
And anytime I feel that way, either it's reading your article or you get in a situation where you can feel that somebody special right next to you, they are. That's how I've always felt about things. So I only wanted to bring it up because I know how much he meant to you, and I think that you got to keep pumping that story out every year because it just makes everybody else feel so great that you feel that way about your dad, because we all feel that way about our dad. So thank you for that.
I appreciate the kind words, guys. Thanks.
Thanks for your time today. This is long overdue. We've talked about getting you on for a while. Happy to do it. Happy to see that things just continue to surge for you, and there's a reason for it because you work your ass off. So thanks for your time today, and have fun on the show this afternoon, and have fun this week, and we'll see where this hockey club leads us.
Oh, yeah, no end to shortage, guys. Good to see you guys again. Rubes, try to get your power back on, eh? Pay your bills.
Yeah, I should pay that power bill pretty soon, I guess, huh?
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason. See you, huh?
See you guys. Have a good one.
Well, 2021 is done, and even though many of us feel it might have been a little off year in general, it certainly wasn't that for the Edmonton metro area in terms of real estate. That actually was a very good year. Now, not crazy like some parts of the country, but still very encouraging. I was chatting with Brent McIntosh from the McIntosh Group at Remax River City just the other day, obviously wishing him all the best in this upcoming year, 2022. And we started talking a little bit about the fact that now is a good time to gear up if you're thinking about looking for a new place or maybe putting your place on the market. The reason why you get going now is you'll be ready to go because the market really starts to pick up in the month of February. So rather than waste the month of January, just start getting things going in a more positive direction as you look for your next purchase or perhaps the sale of your current place. If you'd like to track them down, give them a shout at 780-464-0075 or McIntoshGroup.ca. Start the process with a complimentary evaluation of your current home. There's no obligation. There's no deadline for this offer, but just don't let the market pass you by. Be ready to go when the market starts to really pick up. Both buyers and sellers can contact the Macintosh Group at RE/MAX River City. Once again, direct. Here's the number, 780-464-0075, or you can find them at macintoshgroup.ca. Whew, what a show today. Great having Jason Gregor on. And he does a great job in the afternoons on TSN 1260, has done so for a very long time. One of the more respected broadcasters/journalists that we've got going, and has got a great following. And not afraid to speak his mind, which I really love. And I've always loved about Jay. I think he and you know what? As emotional as he was getting towards the end there, where he was talking about his dad, he's an emotional guy when it comes to talking about sports. He's never been afraid to say how he feels. And that's so important.
Well, the thing that strikes me, Bryn, and you were there from the start. I came in when the newspaper days ended, and Jason was good enough after. You talked about the other guy you brought in, Stoff. We know what he's doing now, and he's doing a great job at that over at Shed. And I thought, geez, when Bob goes, well, there goes my modest radio career, because Bob had me on for whatever it was, about a year before he went over. Jason came in, and I thought, well, you know how it works, right? I'm not one of his guys.
Yeah.
So it was fun while it lasted. Oh, can I keep you on? And I didn't really know Jason at all. I knew his work. Like I say, 8 or 9 years later, that was a nice run. He mentions luck, and again, he's not lucky. He's good. He works at it, and that's the one thing I saw over there is he's prepared, never phones it in, and he does all the things that they tell you back in school. If you do it, you'll be successful. A lot of us go yes, and we nod, and then we don't do all those things. He works today like it's his second day on the job, not like he's an established guy with a great show. He's never gotten lazy about it and taken anything for granted. And that's why he's where he's at today. So good for him.
Well, a lot of people have often told me it's about being in the right place at the right time. And I go, yeah, there's a lot to that. A lot of people have always said, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And I totally agree with that. Hey, listen, the vibes you put out there, and this goes to anybody at any job. If you're putting out good, positive vibes, I tend to believe strongly that will come back to you. So Jason is just another walking exhibit of that. A lot of guys that I know are walking exhibits of that. And anyway, it was great to have him on. We've been trying now for a couple of months and haven't been able to sync up. And then, of course, your power goes out right in the middle of it. And I'm going, oh, no, not today. But hey,
we got the cell phone.
That's what happens. We talked a little bit about hockey, that kind of stuff. I know you're not a big NFL fan, but crazy super wild card weekend. And tonight we've got the Rams and the Cardinals. The winner goes on. The winner gets the Tampa Bay Bucks. I don't know if that's a winner or not, but that's how it will stack up. Kansas City beating Pittsburgh. Big Ben has done his career. Man, oh man, the 39-year-old still, it doesn't throw a really tight spiral anymore, but was able to get Pittsburgh into the playoffs, even though it was kind of crazy the previous weekend. San Francisco knock off Dallas, and that one went right down to the wire. A very strange call by the Cowboys. Dak Prescott decided to do a quarterback keeper with around 8 seconds to go. They ran out of time when they took away an opportunity for a Hail Mary opportunity, but hey, that's the way it goes. Dallas seemed to be, at least over the last 20 years, just seemed to be a team designed to break your heart, and they do it frequently. Good friend of ours, Paul Almeida, has been a Cincinnati Bengals fan for as long as I know. They finally won a playoff game for the first time in 31 years. Paul actually smiled. He actually smiled, Rob.
Yeah, you can't call Paul a front runner on that one.
No, you cannot. And a couple of guys that I know are Buffalo Bills fans, and they finally got their big win too this weekend. So there are some guys that are really, really happy who have not been very happy for a very, very long time watching the NFL. Hey, and is there anything we've missed today? Because I know we talked about a lot of stuff. Anything you want to bring up?
I don't know. I'm trying to think. Well, we went through a few things with Gregor. I'm waiting to see further. I mean, we touched on this, and you and I had a discussion this morning, Bryn. I'm starting to wonder if we're going to see more cracks in, I guess, that Oilers foundation. You touched on it with, Now
you're talking building foundation, not the community foundation.
Yeah.
Okay, just for clarification here.
Holland's media availability, how it ended. I don't expect Connor McDavid to be happy in a situation like that. Sometimes you can't, you can put too much weight in a question, a how does it feel question right after it's felt really bad and it sucks because you lost again. So the reaction you get can be pretty steely-eyed and cold, but at some point, this team has to swing out of this nosedive. I believe that they will, but right now, whether it's aggravation over the slump they're in, whether there's some consternation over Evander Kane, should we or shouldn't we, those kind of things, I'm sure that gets bounced around in the dressing room. It's getting pretty edgy down there. Not necessarily something that a few wins can't at least smooth over for the time being, but I think, as you said, we're going to find out a little something in this next game against Florida, a really good team. But man, there's got to be a turn in the road somewhere, because the one they're on right now is to nowhere.
Well, they have the Florida game on Thursday, unless it gets postponed. I don't see that being an issue. I think that, we'll see. You never know. But I do know they play the Calgary Flames in Edmonton on the Saturday night. So if they don't have any emotion for Thursday, they better damn well have it on Saturday night.
Better have it for both nights, my friend.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that Florida game, for me, it's a monstrous game. They don't have to win it. You better frickin' show up. You would better be there for that game. So, I don't know. Hey, listen, you can check us out on Twitter. The handle's really simple, @Outsiders2020. Make sure you tell your friends to subscribe to our RSS feed. That way, when a new podcast drops on any of your favorite ear candy sites like Apple, Google, Spotify, Pocket Casts, etc., you get it. Just automatically downloads onto your mobile device or whatever. And by the way, I just noticed last week, in December, it's the first time ever that Apple became the number 2 distributor of podcasts. Spotify went by them in the month of December. I'm guessing the way these companies are dumping billions of dollars into podcasts, I expect that you're going to see a lot more of that over the next little while. Anyway, we're also on YouTube and looking to I don't know if this is a real positive we should be promoting or not, but we're planning on coming to you on YouTube, and you'll actually be able to see us do this show.
Well, I don't know if today's show is a great primer for that, but we can.
We don't have a lot of technical problems. Hey, listen, we have this all across Canada. I was noticing Toronto's just getting crushed today with a blizzard. The Gardner Expressway and the Don Valley Parkway, they've all been shut down because they're getting a ton of snow in Toronto. Might have to send the military in. That's the old joke. But here in Western Canada, don't know what's going on in British Columbia, but Alberta's expecting a big winter storm. And leading the attack, we've had a bit of an ice storm, which is why I think you lost your power today. But thank you for quickly getting to your phone and getting back to us. We appreciate that. So while I say that I record at the Road 55 studio in beautiful downtown icy Edmonton, Robin, generally, you're still in your luxurious studio in Southwest Edmonton. You're Cameron Heights, right?
Yes.
You've just delivered it a little differently today. So nice pickup. You called an audible. It worked. Anyway, thanks, everybody. This has been a blast. Hey, we'll talk to you next week.
You sure will, pal.
Bye-bye, boys. Have fun storming the castle.
Road 55.